Back in the late 90s, the world of Saturday morning cartoons was undergoing a transformation. The golden age of the 80s, filled with shows that doubled as toy commercials, had faded. Kids now had options like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, which offered cartoons around the clock. Traditional Saturday blocks on ABC, CBS, and NBC were starting to lose their edge. That's when ABC decided to shake things up. In 1997, they unveiled something bold, fresh, and a little surreal. One Saturday morning, and it completely changed the game. The concept was developed by Peter Hastings, a former Warner Brothers writer who worked on Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. Hastings was brought in by Disney, who had recently formed a programming partnership with ABC after acquiring Capital Cities, ABC Inc., in 1996. Hastings' vision was to not just throw cartoons on the screen, but to create a full experience. One Saturday Morning was designed as a cohesive world, a sort of cartoon clubhouse in a zany, multi-level building where anything could happen. The shows were the main attraction, but the real genius was in the presentation. Unlike Fox Kids or CBS, ABC's One Saturday Morning used a unique blend of live-action interstitials, CGI environments, and an overarching aesthetic that made the entire block feel like you had stepped into another dimension, one made specifically for kids. It had a futuristic art style, whimsical characters like Manny the Uncanny, and recurring segments that were often as entertaining as the cartoons themselves. The team wanted it to feel like a place, not just a programming slot. And the tagline, 5 hours of summer once a week, nailed that vibe perfectly. This level of creativity didn't happen by accident. Hastings and his team carefully constructed everything around the idea of kid logic, the idea that kids think and process things differently than adults. That meant giving the block a unique structure, wild transitions, and even a literal face for the show. A quirky, animated building that served as the setting for every segment. The goal was to make kids feel like they were entering a special world every Saturday. And for millions of kids tuning in during the late 90s and early 2000s, it worked like magic. Here are some of the most popular TV shows to air on the block. Recess. Let's start with the king of the One Saturday Morning lineup, Recess. Created by Paul Germain and Joe Ansalabahir, Recess premiered in 1997 and became an instant hit. It followed 6 elementary school kids, TJ, Vince, Spinelli, Gretchen, Mikey, and Gus, as they navigated the complex social dynamics of the schoolyard. The playground, ruled by King Bob, was a metaphorical microcosm of the adult world, complete with politics, hierarchies, and hidden rules. What made Recess so brilliant was how it mixed humor with clever social commentary. The show tackled everything from conformity and peer pressure to censorship and authority. It celebrated friendship and rebellion in equal measure, showing kids that it was okay to question the system. It also had a surprisingly strong emotional core, especially in episodes like The Experiment or Weekend at Muriel's. It wasn't just a funny cartoon, it had something to say. Recess became so popular that it eventually spun off into a theatrical movie, Recess School's Out, in 2001, and several direct-to-video specials. The characters were so well written that even as adults, you can still identify with them. Whether you were the leader like TJ or the misunderstood poet like Mikey, Recess had something for everyone.
She's her own biggest fan, Pepper Ann. Ooh, our buck. Catch her if you can, Pepper Ann.
Pepper Ann. Another standout was Pepper Ann, the very first Disney animated show created by a woman, Sue Rose. It debuted alongside Recess in 1997 and focused on the awkward yet endearing life of Pepper Ann Pearson, a quirky, freckled redhead navigating middle school with big emotions and even bigger imagination. Pepper Ann stood out for how it balanced exaggerated comedy with grounded slice-of-life storytelling. Pepper had an inner monologue that was constantly at war with her actual behavior, making her deeply relatable for any tween trying to figure themselves out. The show wasn't afraid to touch on heavier issues like body image, feminism, academic pressure, and the need for individuality. It also featured a diverse supporting cast, like her tomboy best friend Milo and brainy buddy Nikki, and tackled topics well ahead of its time. While it never hit Recess levels of popularity, Pepper Ann still has a dedicated fan base who recognize it as a gem of the block. The Weekenders. Following close behind was The Weekenders, which joined the lineup in 2000 and quickly became a cult favorite. The show followed four friends, Tino, Lore, Carver, and Tish, through their weekend adventures, as they lived by one rule: the weekends are for fun. The Weekenders had a unique format. Each episode took place from Friday to Sunday, showing how the characters' plans unraveled or improved across the weekend. The writing was snappy, the animation clean and stylized, and the humor genuinely witty. Plus, each episode featured a running gag where the kids were always at a different pizza place with a wildly new theme. For many, this show represented a slice of middle school life, where your identity, reputation, and friendships were constantly evolving. It was smart, cool, and a bit underappreciated in its time.
So have you seen her? She's the greatest. Super magic. Call Sabrina.
SABRINA the Animated Series. Another highlight of one Saturday morning was SABRINA the Animated Series, which capitalized on the popularity of the live-action Sabrina the Teenage Witch starring Melissa Joan Hart. This animated version served as a prequel, with Sabrina as a 12-year-old learning to control her powers. With Melissa's younger sister, Emily Hart, voicing the titular role, this version of Sabrina added magical mishaps and moral lessons to its formula. Whether dealing with a botched love spell or an invisibility mishap, each episode had a clear message about growing up and taking responsibility. And of course, Salem the cat stole every scene he was in. The show combined magic and middle school in a way that resonated with kids who felt like misfits, even if they didn't have supernatural powers.
Oops.
LLOYD in Space. While it might not be as well remembered today, LLOYD in Space was a creative gem that aired from 2001 to 2004. Created by the same team behind Recess, this series was essentially Recess in Space. LLOYD Nebulon, a green-skinned alien teenager, dealt with the same kind of teenage angst and awkwardness, but with robots, aliens, and intergalactic school bullies thrown into the mix. Despite the sci-fi setting, the themes were universal: peer pressure, jealousy, friendship, and family. LLOYD's single mom was a strong parental figure, and his friends like Nerdy Douglas and the blobby alien Kurt each brought something unique to the table. LLOYD in Space proved that even in the far future, growing up was still confusing. Teacher's Pet. One of the more offbeat additions to One Saturday Morning was Teacher's Pet, a bizarre and hilarious show about a dog named Spot, who dresses up as a human boy named Scott Ladretti II so he can attend school. Why? Because he wants to learn and be more than just a dog. Voiced by the legendary Nathan Lane, Spot and Scott was a chaotic yet lovable character. The show was wild, witty, and full of clever adult references hidden just beneath the surface. It ran from 2000 to 2002, and even inspired a theatrical movie in 2004. While it didn't always get the same ratings as Recess, Teacher's Pet was a critical darling and a cult hit among kids who appreciated something a little more surreal. Disney's Doug. Though Doug originally started on Nickelodeon, Disney acquired the rights in 1996 and launched a slightly updated version for ABC. Initially known as Brand Spankin' New Doug, the art style was cleaner, the storylines a little softer, and Doug's love interest Patty Mayonnaise was slightly more prominent. While some fans preferred the original Nick version, the Disney Doug found a second life on One Saturday Morning. It helped anchor the block at the start and bridged the transition into newer Disney-owned content. And let's be honest, whether you were watching on Nick or ABC, Doug's voice, diary entries, and daydreams were unforgettable.
To infinity and beyond!
Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. One of the most ambitious animated series to hit one Saturday morning was Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. Spinning off from the massively successful Toy Story franchise, this 2000 series reimagined Buzz not as a toy, but as the actual intergalactic space ranger from the in-universe cartoon that inspired the action figure. Voiced by Patrick Warburton, this Buzz was brave, serious, and constantly battling evil across the galaxy, especially the sinister Emperor Zurg. The show expanded the Toy Story universe in exciting ways, introducing us to Team Lightyear, composed of Rookie Mira Nova, Genius Robot XR, and Strongman Booster. While the animation wasn't quite Pixar quality, it still had a strong visual identity and plenty of high-octane action. Each episode played like a pulpy sci-fi adventure, with humor, gadgets, and heart. It was a perfect example of how one Saturday morning balanced storytelling with spectacle.
He's round and he's fuzzy, I love him because he's just Pooh Bear, Winnie the Pooh Bear. Looking for
The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Though it debuted in 1988, The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh had a long and beloved run on ABC's Saturday morning blocks, often syndicated or slotted into one Saturday morning schedule in its early years. The series brought A.A. Milne's timeless characters into a more dynamic, episodic structure, combining soft animation with surprisingly mature themes about friendship, fears, and growing up. Voiced by legendary talents like Jim Cummings, Winnie the Pooh, and Tigger, the series preserved the charm of the original tales while adding Saturday morning-friendly pacing and visuals. It was calm and comforting, perfect for the earlier hours of the block, and provided a counterbalance to more frenetic shows. For younger viewers, or those who just needed something warm and gentle, Winnie the Pooh was always there with a soft lesson and a silly giggle.
The Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show.
The Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show. Not all of one Saturday morning was strictly Disney. For a time, ABC still had the rights to air the Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show, which acted as a showcase for classic Looney Tunes shorts. While it didn't always match the branding of Disney's newer cartoons, it was a nostalgic treat for parents and a zany introduction for kids unfamiliar with Bugs, Daffy, Sylvester, and Tweety. This show kept older animation alive on network TV, repackaging decades-old shorts into a fun, rotating anthology. Watching Bugs Bunny and Tweety on one Saturday morning felt like getting a dose of cartoon history, full of slapstick, satire, and timeless comedy. For many viewers, it was their first exposure to these iconic characters, and the series managed to feel both retro and relevant. Mickey Mouse Works. Before House of Mouse, Disney experimented with Mickey Mouse Works, a return to short-form animation in the vein of old-school Looney Tunes. Each episode consisted of several mini-sketches starring Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, and Pluto. The shorts ranged from slapstick chaos to surreal comedy, often mimicking the tone of classic 40s and 50s cartoons. Mickey Mouse Works was a proving ground for a lot of material that would later appear in House of Mouse. And though its run was brief, it helped bring the original Disney characters back into the spotlight. It wasn't as emotionally rich as Recess or Pepper Ann, but it served as a fun palate cleanser between the deeper shows on the block.
So come on in, we're gonna shake the house. We're having a ball at the House of Mouse.
House of Mouse. One of the most inventive shows to ever appear during one Saturday morning's era was House of Mouse, which aired on ABC starting in 2001. The concept? Mickey Mouse and friends run a nightclub where every single Disney character, from the classics to the moderns, drop in as guests. It was the Saturday Night Live of the Disney universe, and it worked surprisingly well. The show cleverly combined new wraparound segments with classic Disney animated shorts, many of which were repurposed or introduced through Mickey Mouse Works. The fun came from seeing unlikely crossovers, Jafar arguing with Hades, or Donald Duck serving food to the beast. It felt like a Disney multiverse before that idea was even trendy, and the sheer number of cameos gave it massive rewatch value. Disney's Hercules, the animated series. Based on the hit 1997 film, Disney's Hercules, the animated series premiered in 1998 and brought a comedic Saturday morning spin to Greek mythology. The show reimagined Hercules as a teen still in training at the Prometheus Academy, complete with school crushes, pop quizzes, and run-ins with mythological monsters. It was a prequel to the movie despite some timeline inconsistencies, and nobody really cared because it was a blast. Tate Donovan reprised his role as Hercules, and James Woods returned as Hades, delivering some of the best lines in the series. The show kept the movie's irreverent tone and loaded each episode with puns, cameos, and tongue-in-cheek references. It didn't have the emotional weight of the film, but it embraced the zaniness of mythology in a way kids loved.
Canines on the run. Them doggone dogs.
101 Dalmatians, the series. 101 Dalmatians might not get as much attention today, but it was a solid entry on the One Saturday Morning roster from 1997 to 1998. This series focused on three main pups, Lucky, Raleigh, and Cadpig, along with the Chicken Spot, living on a farm owned by Roger and Anita. The show expanded the world of the original film and added new villains, side characters, and comedic plots. Unlike the movie's 1960s setting, the show had a more contemporary tone and leaned heavily into slapstick and action comedy. Cruella de Vil was still around, now trying to take over the farm instead of just stealing puppies. Though it didn't last long, 101 Dalmatians, the series had energetic animation, strong voice work, and plenty of heart. It deserved more love than it got.
Put your faith in what you most believe in. Two worlds, one family.
The Legend of Tarzan. Following the success of the 1999 Tarzan movie, The Legend of Tarzan debuted in 2001, picking up right where the film left off. Tarzan and Jane now live together in the jungle with their eclectic animal family, including Turk and Tantor. But this wasn't just about swinging on vines. The show tackled colonialism, conservation, and complex moral decisions, all wrapped in thrilling jungle adventures. What made this show stand out was its animation quality and serious tone. It treated its audience with respect, exploring mature themes without getting preachy. The character arcs, especially Jane adjusting to jungle life, gave it continuity rare in Saturday morning TV. While it may have skewed slightly older than some of the other shows on the block, The Legend of Tarzan was a perfect fit for kids ready for a little more depth.
The bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife.
Jungle Cubs. Before The Legend of Tarzan, Disney experimented with younger versions of another jungle crew in Jungle Cubs. This prequel series to the Jungle Book imagined Baloo, Bagheera, Shere Khan, Louie, Hathi, and Kaa as playful young animals growing up together before becoming enemies in the movie. The series originally aired in 1996, but was later rerun as part of One Saturday Morning. Jungle Cubs was softer in tone, focusing on life lessons, teamwork, and jungle mischief. It was an early entry into the babyfication trend of the 90s, think Muppet Babies, but it worked well for its target audience. The show helped introduce kids to the Jungle Book characters while giving them fresh personalities and dynamics that weren't tied down by the film's darker themes. The fall and transition to ABC Kids. By the mid-2000s, things started to shift. The FCC's stricter guidelines on educational programming, the rise of cable channels like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, and the growing popularity of DVRs and on-demand viewing all contributed to the decline of Saturday morning blocks. In 2002, One Saturday Morning was rebranded as ABC Kids, and while some of the original shows remained for a while, the magic started to fade. Eventually, Disney phased out the entire block in favor of reruns from the Disney Channel and Toon Disney. By 2011, ABC Kids was gone entirely, replaced with syndicated educational content. The era of waking up for One Saturday Morning was over, but its impact lives on in the memories of the kids who grew up watching. ABC's One Saturday Morning wasn't just a lineup. It was a feeling. A mix of bright colors, unforgettable characters, and just the right dose of weirdness that made Saturday mornings feel like a mini holiday every week. From the bold hijinks of Recess and the heart of Pepper Ann, to the sci-fi smarts of Lloyd in Space and the criminally underrated The Weekenders, this block was peak millennial nostalgia. A huge shout out and heartfelt thank you to our amazing Throwback Tier members, Peace by Chaos, Thecula, iCritic, Jeremy Bowen, Mr. Blanks, and Sonic and Leighton Fan. Your support means the world, and you're helping keep the nostalgia alive in a big way. I also want to thank all the other awesome members who support the channel. Whether you're new or you've been rocking with us from the beginning, I appreciate every single one of you. For many of us, One Saturday Morning marked a time when cartoons felt like a weekend event, something worth waking up early for. And while the block may be gone, its spirit still lives on in our memories and in the streaming archives where some of these shows continue to find new audiences. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos on nostalgic TV, cartoons, and more. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep the nostalgia alive.